Democracy or dictatorship? Which one would you choose? Welcome to Step Up with Smarajit, and this is the second video of my channel regarding the play Julius Caesar. In my first video, I had given a brief summary of the play Julius Caesar, and where we had also talked about the themes where power, ambition, and political conspiracy were the main themes of the play Julius Caesar. At the same time, at the backdrop, which was running all against, was the theme of republicanism versus Caesarism, or what we call in simpler language, democracy versus dictatorship. In this video, I will give a line-by-line explanation along with the background of Act 1, Scene 1. The beginning of the play, or Act 1, Scene 1, is based on the themes of political conspiracy, as you can see from the very beginning, and of course, power and ambition, which runs throughout the play. If you are new to my channel, I would wish you to subscribe to it and hit the bell icon, and of course, share it as widely as possible. Julius Caesar, Act 1, Scene 1. We see the streets of Rome before the storm, and welcome to ancient Rome, the heart of a vast empire where victory, ambition, and political intrigue shape the destiny of a nation, which is Rome. As Julius Caesar returns in triumph, the citizens rejoice, but not everyone welcomes his growing power. Act 1, Scene 1 introduces us to a city divided between celebration and suspicion, setting the stage for one of Shakespeare's greatest tragedies. Julius Caesar, along with Pompey and Crassus, were the consuls who formed the triumvirate of Rome. And Crassus dies, and we are left with Julius Caesar and Pompey, who share the power, who are in a power-sharing tussle, who would rule over Rome, and thus begins their great rivalry. And this rivalry sets the tone for the entire play, where we find a conflict between Caesar and the loyalists of Pompey, those who are the senators of Rome. In Act 1, Scene 1, we see Flavius and Marullus, the tribunes, who enter along with certain other citizens or commoners. The scene begins with one of the tribunes, Flavius, addressing the crowd who have gathered to welcome Caesar on the streets of Rome. He says, "Hence home, you idle creatures, get you home. Is this a holiday? What? Know you not, being mechanical, you ought not to walk upon a laboring day without the sign of your profession. Speak, what trade art thou?" What Flavius means is telling the crowd to go home. Hence means go away, go home, you idle creatures. The way he's treating the commoners, like with words like idle and creatures, get you home. Is this a holiday? So why are you out on the streets? You should be working today. What know you not? Being mechanical, you ought not to walk upon a laboring day. A laboring day means on a working day. Why are you out on your streets and not doing your work? Without the sign of your profession. Means without, you should be out on the streets, but you should be wearing your badges or signs of your profession. Speak, he's addressing a commoner, and he says, "Speak, what trade art thou?" And the first commoner or the citizen responds respectfully, "Why, sir, a carpenter." Then the other tribune, Marullus, says, "Where is thy leather apron and thy rule? What dost thou with thy best apparel on? You, sir, what trade are you?" So Marullus addresses the carpenter and says, "Where is the leather apron and the rule?" Which is the mark of a carpenter. They would wear a leather apron and they would carry a rule to measure the woodwork. Okay, so and he questions the carpenter, "What dost thou with the best apparel on?" So what are you doing today with your best clothes without your leather apron? Okay, and then he moves on to the other commoner and says, "You, sir, what trade are you?" The second citizen or the second commoner says, "Truly, sir, in respect of a fine workman, I am but, as you would say, a cobbler." So in a roundabout way, the second commoner says that he is a fine workman, but he is also a cobbler at the same time. Marullus doesn't quite understand, and he says, "But what trade art thou? Answer me directly." And in response, the second commoner or the second citizen says, "A trade, sir, that I hope I may use with a safe conscience, which is indeed, sir, a mender of bad souls." Here we see Shakespeare punning with the word souls. Here the cobbler means he mends shoes or is a mender of bad souls. But at the same time, he says, with a safe conscience, again, souls can be the human soul or what we call the Atma. So he's again playing with words, and as we had said earlier, Shakespeare was very clever with words. And this is a typical example how Shakespeare is punning with the word soul. Which soul? Which is the human soul, and second is the shoe's soul, the bottom of the shoe, which is soul, which a cobbler deals with. Marullus doesn't quite understand. He gets angry. "What trade, thou knave? Thou naughty knave, what trade?" He's again berates the commoner and says, "Thou knave" means scoundrel. What trade? Which profession, you scoundrel? You naughty scoundrel, what trade are you in? Then the second commoner has maintained his cool and says, "Nay, I beseech you, sir, be not out with me. Yet, if you be out, sir, I can mend you." What he says is, "I beg with you, sir, do not be angry with me." Do not be out with me means do not be angry with me. But if you are angry, sir, I can mend you. So what he means is actually that I can mend your shoes, but at the same time, there is again a Shakespearean humor and the audience loves it. Means a commoner can actually mend one of the tribunes, or one can set him right, which is the punning which comes with the pun. I can mend you. Marullus gets further raised by that and says, "What meanest thou by that? Mend me, thou saucy fellow, you impudent fellow, you cheeky fellow. What do you mean by that? Mend me means what do you mean by that?" Then the second commoner or the citizen says, very simply, "Why, sir, cobble you?" What he means here is, "I'll mend your shoe." But what the other meaning could be is, "I could set you right. If you're angry with me, I can correct you as well," which is of course very, very impudent. Flavius steps in and says, "Thou art a cobbler, art thou?" Now the second commoner simply says, "Truly, sir, all that I live by is with the all. I meddle with no tradesman's matters, nor women's matters, but with all. I am indeed, sir, a surgeon to old shoes. When they are in great danger, I recover them. As proper men as ever trod upon neat's leather have gone upon my handiwork." So he says, "Truly, sir, what I mean to say is I live by with the awl." The awl is a tool which the cobbler uses to stitch shoes and leather. So I use the awl for making a living. I do not meddle with any other tradesman, nor with women, but with all. What it means everyone. Here again, Shakespeare is punning on the word all. On the one hand, it is the spelling with AWL, and the other is ALL, which means everyone. I am indeed, sir, a surgeon to old shoes. A surgeon to old shoes means I mend old shoes. Just like a surgeon cures human beings, I mend old shoes. When they are in great danger, means when they get worn out, I mend them. I recover them. I recover them means make them healthy, or in a very direct sense, cover them again. As proper men as ever trod upon neat's leather have gone upon my handiwork. As great men as ever have worn my shoes, and neat's leather here means cattle's leather or cow's leather, have gone upon my handiwork or have worn my shoes. And this is how the second commoner tells that he is actually a simple cobbler and he is dedicated to his work. Now Flavius asks the cobbler the question, "But wherefore are not in thy shop today? why dost thou lead these men about the streets? So if you're a cobbler and if you're so dedicated to your work, so why are you not at your shop today? Why are you leading the other commoners about the streets today? Responding to Flavius's question, the second citizen or the second commoner says, "Truly, sir, to wear out their shoes, to get myself into more work. But indeed, sir, we make holiday to see Caesar and to rejoice in his triumph." So now the cobbler says, truly to wear out the shoes. Why we have called so many people out on the streets? He says, to wear out the shoes, to get myself more work. That was the stated reason. But the real reason he says is, but indeed, sir, we make holiday to see Caesar and to rejoice in his triumph. So we are here out on the streets to welcome Caesar and to celebrate his triumph once he comes back to Rome. This explanation by the cobbler really infuriates Marullus, and he gives the entire crowd a big scolding. Wherefore rejoice? What conquest brings you home? What tributaries follow him to Rome, to grace in captive bonds his chariot wheels? So now Marullus says, what rejoice? What conquest is he bringing home? What conquest is Caesar bringing home? Means what has Caesar won to bring back to Rome? What tributaries follow him to Rome? In earlier days, when the generals used to win a war, they would bring certain tributaries chained to their chariots to Rome. Okay, and now he continues with says, to grace in captive bonds his chariot wheels. So the tributaries would be tied to the chariots to the wheels, and they could be released by a certain amount to be paid to the state of Rome. So Marullus is questioning, what is Caesar bringing? What tributaries follow him to Rome? To grace in captive bonds his chariot wheels. So Caesar is not bringing anything. So why are you celebrating? You blocks, you stones, you worse than senseless things. So Marullus is really off the handle, and he says, you blocks, you stones. He's addressing the crowd as you heartless human beings, you blocks of wood, you stones, you worse than senseless things. How can you do this? O you hard hearts, you cruel men of Rome, knew you not Pompey? So Marullus is questioning the crowd. You hard hearts, you blocks, you stones, you cruel men of Rome, knew not Pompey? Did you not know Pompey? Many a time and oft have you climbed up to walls and battlements, to towers and windows, to chimney tops. So many a time, the same people, in welcoming Pompey, you have climbed up to walls and battlements. Battlements are the castles where the guns and the cannons were kept. So those were the battlements. So to towers and windows, and to chimney tops. So even to chimney tops, you had to climb up just to see a glimpse of Pompey and to welcome him. Your infants in your arms, and there have sat the livelong day with patient expectation to see great Pompey pass the streets of Rome. So Marullus continues with his rant, and he tells the crowd, you have waited with infants in your arms, and there have sat the livelong day, the whole day you have waited for Pompey with patient expectation, just to see the great Pompey pass the streets of Rome. So you admired Pompey so much, you gave him so much love and affection, so that you'd spend the livelong day just waiting for him to pass. And when you saw his chariot but appear, have you not made a universal shout? So once you saw Pompey coming in the streets of Rome, did you not all shout together? A universal shout means everybody shouting and cheering together. The moment Pompey appeared in front of the crowd, they would welcome him with a loud cheer. And the shout was so loud that Tiber trembled underneath her banks to hear the replication of your sounds made in her concave shores. So Tiber is the river on which the city of Rome was built, and once the crowd shouted in unison to welcome Pompey, the shout was so loud that the river Tiber trembled underneath her banks. Means it reverberated, the water reverberated to hear the replication of your sound, to hear the echo of your shouts, which was made in a concave shores, the concave, the bed of the river, that would echo the sound of the crowd in welcoming Pompey. And do you now put on your best attire? And do you now call out a holiday? And do you now strew flowers in his way? So, what are you doing now? Are you putting on your best clothes? You're making out a holiday, enjoying a holiday, and strewing flowers in the way that comes in triumph over Pompey's blood. So what are you doing today? You're coming out in your best clothes and you're strewing flowers to welcome Caesar, who comes in triumph over Pompey's blood. Caesar is returning in victory after killing Pompey's sons. Pompey's blood here means Pompey's sons, a progeny, and now he's become all powerful, with Pompey himself having fled from Rome and been killed in Egypt. Pompey's sons were there, but Caesar has killed Pompey's sons also, and is returning in victory as the complete dictator, complete powerful person, because there is no one to challenge his power, and is returning in victory to Rome over Pompey's blood. Marullus is so charged up, he continues with his rant. Be gone! Run to your houses, fall upon your knees, pray to the gods to intermit the plague that needs must light on this ingratitude. Now Marullus says, go to your homes, go away from here, and fall to your knees. Fall upon your knees in forgiveness. Ask forgiveness for the sin that you have committed in welcoming someone who is coming over in Pompey's blood. So be gone, run to your houses, fall upon your knees as if to ask for mercy, and pray to the gods to intermit the plague that needs must light on this ingratitude. So he tells the crowd, the gods will not forgive you because you have committed a sin of welcoming someone who is coming in victory over Pompey's blood. So you have committed a sin. So go to the gods and pray so that the gods will intermit or stop the plague. Plague is a disease which will come upon the people of Rome because of their ingratitude in welcoming Caesar over Pompey's blood. So Flavius now continues. He tells the commoners, go, good countrymen, and for this fault, assemble all the poor men of your sort. Fault of welcoming Caesar and celebrating his return to Rome. So he tells the commoners to go to their home, and for this fault of welcoming Caesar, assemble all the men of your sort, all the poor men of your sort, means bring all the poor men together of your sort, means all the workmen together, and draw them to the Tiber banks, and weep your tears into the channel, till the lowest stream do kiss the most exalted shores of all. Now he tells the commoners, bring all the people and to the banks of the river Tiber, and weep your tears into the channel. Weep because you have committed a sin of welcoming Caesar. Because Pompey was once your hero, you're so fickle-minded that you're now changed mind, and you're welcoming someone who's defeated Pompey and you're welcoming back to Rome. So go and weep your tears into the channel, means into the river Tiber, till the lowest stream do kiss the most exalted shores of all. So weep so much that the river Tiber rises and the water stream reaches the highest shore. And with this, the commoners and the citizens exit the sea. Flavius continues with his speech after the commoners or the citizens have exited the stage, and he says, see whether the basest metal be not moved. Now he's addressing Marullus, and he says, see whether their basest metal be not moved. they vanish tongue-tied in their guiltiness. So what he tells Marullus is, see, once you have pointed out the mistake, even the lowliest of them, the lowest denominator, means the lowest person, has been moved and had been made to realize what the mistake they have done. Now they have vanished tongue-tied in their guiltiness. So they have quietly gone away, absolutely speechless and without, in complete silence, being aware of the guilt which they have, bearing in mind of welcoming Caesar and coming out on the streets to welcome Caesar. Now he tells Marullus, go you down that way towards the Capitol, and he instructs Marullus to go one side towards the Capitol, and this way will I disrobe the images if you do find them decked with ceremonies. So we'll both branch out, and if you find any statue of Caesar with any ceremonies or trophies, we will pull them down. Marullus is slightly skeptical with this action suggested by Flavius. Maybe do so. He's questioning that. You know, it is the feast of Lupercal. And Marullus has his reason to be skeptical, because he says that the feast of Lupercal is today. So Caesar's statue being decked up with trophies and ceremonial robes was normal. So if we pull down those trophies and those ceremonial robes, will that not upset the common people? The Feast of Lupercal is one of the most popular festivals of ancient Rome, which falls on the 15th of February, wherein infertile women become fertile when runners come and touch them on that particular day. And we shall see that 15th of February is just 1 month before the main action happens on the Ides of March. And it is the Feast of Lupercal is a general festival for general health of the people, and particularly for infertile or barren women. Flavius responds, it is no matter. Let no images be hung with Caesar's trophies. So Flavius says, don't worry, Marullus, it doesn't really matter. Let no images be hung with Caesar's trophies. Let no images of Caesar's be around on the streets with his Caesar's trophies. I'll about and drive away the vulgar from the streets. I will go and drive away the vulgar, means the common people, from the streets. So do you too, where you perceive them thick. So I will go and make sure that the people do not assemble on the streets. And you too, when you see them, they're thick or they're assembling at some point, ask them to disassemble and go back to their homes. Now Flavius comes to the crux of the point. These growing feathers plucked from Caesar's wing will make him fly an ordinary pitch. This is the main worry of the tribunes, that Caesar is growing too popular, is growing too powerful. And these growing feathers plucked from Caesar's wing. Caesar is winging himself higher and higher above the other Romans, and the crowd is feeding his ambition. So these growing feathers plucked from Caesar's wing will make him fly an ordinary pitch. So once we send these people home, we take down the ceremonial robes from Caesar's images. This will make him fly an ordinary pitch, will bring him down and make him fly an ordinary pitch. And the reason for his fears is that who else would soar above the view of men and keep us all in servile fearfulness? So he says, who else other than Caesar would, with his ever-rising popularity, would soar above the view of men and keep us all in servile fearfulness? And Caesar, growing to be a dictator, will keep us all in servile fearfulness. We need to cater to his whims and fancies and act according to his wishes, which they absolutely detest. After this, Flavius and Marullus exit the scene, or what we call in Shakespeare language, exeunt, means exit the stage. And this brings us to the end of Act 1, Scene 1. And dear students of ICSE Class 9, I shall be discussing what is the exam requirements for the play Julius Caesar, for which you need to follow me on the number which is given in the description below. And if you have liked the video, please hit the subscribe button and of course like it and share it widely with your friends. Thank you so much, and bye bye till we meet again in our next video.